I would listen to so much music.
Oh yeah.
And it's mostly all the same, like funk.
Right.
And so it was like a lot of organ and horns. And then I was with my buddy Robert, who plays organ, and the rest of the band. And I was like, it was like the fourth day of the jam cruise. I was like, dude, do you hear that? And it was like this engine noise just going like, ee! And I was like, it sounds like you're holding a high.
I'm just getting that closer. You
Oh, okay.
volume.
Okay.
On the
I might have
organ.
to sit up. Actually, pass me this couch is deep as fuck.
You're deep as fuck. And then
I am.
in my head, I was like playing like a horn line. So I was like,
What are the-
"Wee!" and it was like,
what are the levels
because
Roozie sounds.
I sound great.
He sounds good. He sounds louder than us two, but then I don't know if that's just my headphone
loud.
volume
Oh,
or if
dude.
that's the mix.
Totally.
Yep. How do the levels? They're all pretty equal. Because I'm not sure
Oh yeah.
if the.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, never mind. The level there should still be the mix of. Yeah, I was just tricking myself out a little.
Do you guys feel like you have to wear these headphones while you do it? It's helpful for you.
Hearing
it out of the headphone?
Yeah.
You are?
Yeah.
Okay. That's like
Yeah. Well, then
Yeah.
when you're not up to. The
Oh, right,
mic,
I
and when
can
you're
hear
up
it.
to, that's when you know. Yeah.
Right,
so
right.
it helps me.
It helps
remember
you.
with that.
Yeah, it helps also you hear. Are you talking into the mic?
That's what I just said.
I am now. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Can I turn those guys down in the headphones? Do you have individual controls? They're loud.
We
as
didn't
fuck.
say that in the mic. You were.
What up?
Yo.
How's it going?
Good.
We're here at the Temple of Doom once again, and this time we got Gasp here with
Hello.
us. Gasp One, the Instagram handle, correct?
Correct.
Brian is his first name.
Fuck, you're not supposed to tell people that.
Oh fuck! All right, stop the show. But I've had the pleasure of knowing Brian since about, I think it was like 2015. I remember meeting you over at Goosefire, which was a studio that was local that's not around anymore. But Slinger was in town, and I just stopped by, and I had a thing called Boro to Your Doro, where I was just like selling a bunch of artists' work on the road. And so Slinger was like, yo, you should check out my homie Brian's work. And obviously anyone, Slinger recommends is going to be dope. But he was explaining to me how Brian's like an OG and, been friends with him and Derek since early mid 90s or so. And they were like the first group of glass blowers when they all started blowing glass at the same time and together. And so I got to get some of Brian's work, took it on the road, sold all of it except for that one set that I just ended up keeping for myself. And actually I brought it up today, and we didn't really know each other. And he saw that I was coming through Oregon and reached out, DM'd, was like, yo, dude, I'd love to like grab a beer with you and just, make some time and chat. And I've always loved tater tots, but Portland fucking has the best fucking tater tots. It's all of Oregon, really, but Portland has that shit on lock.
I didn't
And
realize tater tots were like an Oregon thing. I just
try
thought
get
they were everywhere.
tater tots somewhere else. They
Maybe
won't be as
Pacific
good.
Northwest.
They
I do
won't be
remember
as
tater
good.
tots in Seattle also,
So, and
but not in Ithaca. I
So-
mean, they're at the grocery store,
Right,
not
right,
at the
right.
pub.
Right, right.
so I'd been through Portland a bunch selling glass already, so I'd already found my love of tots and the beer and the food in Portland and stuff. And then Brian, he was like, you want to, meet? And I was like, yeah, I love tots, dude. And it's like, yeah, let's meet at this bar, and I showed up and Brian was already there with a pitcher and a fucking plate of tots. And I'll never forget that. The
Hungry tiger.
hungry tiger. And every
Yeah.
time we like drive, I'm like, I feel we're close to it. Like, it's right there. I was like, oh shit. So, and then ever since that, we've become dear friends. I opened the shop like a year after. So I obviously, not just from selling his work to other shops, put it in my store. We've done shows together. We talk a lot of shit to each other, which is so funny and great because it just, I don't know, it keeps things really fresh, and you don't get to really talk straight shit with a lot of people without offending anyone.
True.
And it's just cool that he could send me a middle finger emoji and we just laugh. And he'll shrug his shoulders at me a lot. But yeah, it's an honor to have you here, especially with Derek. You
Hell
guys have
yeah.
been friends for fucking
Believe
30 some odd
92.
years.
Yeah.
We met in Ithaca, New York in 92. We were both going to the film photo school at Ithaca. I got kicked out after that freshman year and came back the following year. But Brian, I can't remember the exact moment we met. So all I can say is that in that freshman year, what was pretty typical is sophomores and juniors would kind of cruise around and just nab freshmen and invite them to parties. And it was the age of the alternate. It was alternate, 92. It was, and so as an adult, I look back, it's a little shallow, but basically it was like, do you look cool and interesting, or do you look like you want to be in a fraternity?
Right.
And so if you had
Total
pink hair
frat
or
boy,
long
man.
hair, whatever, but that's how I met Brian. And I don't remember exactly the exact circumstance, but I remember it was a similar group. We're the same age, a similar group of people that were a year or two older, inviting us to a party with all the alternative crowd. And
Do you remember meeting Derek?
I don't remember the exact moment, but it was something like that. And I think it was people inviting us to those Cascadilla parties. I think that was... All right, later, Craig.
Love
Great
you, buddy.
to see you, homie.
Yeah.
Yeah. See you, man.
Or if it was just some of us, various people who were into that kind of stuff, into punk, into metal, into anything alternative, just kind of finding each other. Because that was a thing, too. You and me and Carly. Some of us had met, I think, before. God, it's kind of hard to remember.
Yeah, it is. And also, one thing about Ithaca, it was a small campus, and it was everyone, the younger people all do live on campus, so it's possible that I don't think we were in the same dorm, though. I mean, I was in the towers, you were but one way or another, our paths did cross. We did end up in the same social circles, and quickly just became pot smoking buddies.
Yeah. I think that was, I will say, it's really hard to talk without looking at you, but then I lose this, so I just gotta stay forward.
Yeah, whatever you want.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
That's. I mean, I can speak a little louder too. That's maybe still a good thing.
Yeah.
It's just awkward.
I can hear you in the
You're good.
headphones well.
But yeah, I think that was me even more when you came back to college, and then Matt Katzenbach and I were living in a
the
room
same
together,
dorm room. Yep.
And that was when we became just like fucking
100%.
homies, smoking so much fucking dirt weed.
Yeah.
Just
ridiculous.
Sometimes I think back on that, I'm like, man, kids today, they don't fucking get it.
Especially in California.
Oh yeah.
I love that Grandpa Simpson meme's really going around. It's like, back in my day, and we used to heat up a titanium mill red hot.
Right.
And
We used to have to
that's
make
even
sure there
only,
weren't
like,
seeds in there.
and you guys, oh man, way
Yeah.
before.
Yeah,
that was
we
really
were
like a
joking,
thought,
talking
yeah.
off camera about going to Washington Square Park and getting
yeah.
Jamaican,
Oh, that's right.
or at least weed from Jamaicans, and a variety of things there. Just the old school days, like you said. I mean, there were a couple times in Ithaca where at least Sling and myself also were just like, we can't find any weed in town, so we drive like 3 or 4 hours, 4 to 5 hours in New York City, so we can get dirt weed in Washington Square Park.
Yeah.
That was the early 90s, I would, like I said, come back. Brian and I knew each other, have known each other since 92, but for 4 or 5 years before we even before we even started flame working. And so we were involved in a variety of musical projects together that were very appropriate for the time. One of them was like a rap rock thing. Another
So
very,
funny.
very Beastie Boys meets Rage Against the Machine inspiration. It was on the cusp of new metal, so that wasn't really the inspiration there, but and then we did some experimental stuff, dabbled in the punk and hardcore even, and
not only can Brian rap, but he's another sick drummer. I think I'm
Yes.
only gonna have
Nice.
drummers on the
that
Glass
is
One.
hilarious. That is a running theme.
that I'm
running
gonna have
theme.
on here. So, but yeah, go on.
And so I guess in '97 I was living with Sling, and we started flame working, moved out west, and then it was 2000.
Well, I came back. I moved to San Francisco in '96, and then I remember when I came back for the summer of '97 to Ithaca to hang out for a little bit. You guys were already blowing glass with Pat Kiefer in that back room of the Varna house.
Correct, with horrible ventilation.
Yeah. And so already you're like, oh, we're getting into this thing, and we're like making money and going to shows. And I was like, oh shit, damn. Because we had, even before that, we had bought some glass. That was already a thing we liked. People would bring cases from the West Coast. There There's this dude who was Idaho guy who
Was it Idaho? Tory was. Yep.
Yeah, and people would like buy these pipes, and then other people we knew would bring them back to Ithaca.
I don't think he was from Idaho. I think that Ezra was living in Idaho, and he was getting them, and then he was. I think that's what was happening back then.
Well, for us in upstate
West
New
Coast.
York, being younger at that time, it was West Coast glass blowers where they were bringing all these incredible pipes back. We thought it was so cool and everything, and then you guys had started blowing glass by the summer of '97, and I don't remember. It must have been the next year that you came down. I remember hanging out with Sling. I don't remember if we hung out, if you came down, but it was like Zach Gillis and a whole crew came down from Seattle to San Francisco, and everybody's partying and being able to stay out all night and go to all these drum and bass parties. And I was working for an electrical contractor at the time. I had to be at work at 7 a.m. And I was just like, fuck this.
Yeah.
I am so bummed about having a regular job, and I can't keep hanging out, or I'm so tired. And I remember sitting at a bar talking to Slinger, and he's explaining to me how to do a reversal. And just that was the thing that got me. Like, it just was this cool puzzle piece. It wasn't just like, oh, yeah, you take some glass and you, like, draw a bunch of abstract patterns on it. It's like you draw these lines, you twist them up, and then you pop a hole at 90 degrees, and then you attach the handle there, and then it creates this other spiral pattern. And, like, I think there was something about that in my mind that made me really interested all of a sudden in blowing glass in a level I hadn't been interested in it before.
You were already on the torch.
No, I wasn't blowing glass yet.
And that's for a lot of people, glass is hard in the beginning to make logical. You can look at a table and be like, this nailed to this, this nailed to this kind of thing. And then, but glass, you're like, how did they get it to be? So somebody starts breaking down some steps, and Brian is an analytical type of thinker.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, it's like, oh, there's a process, and the process can be broken down into arguably simple steps that you can master, and then the bigger thing isn't quite as daunting.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think also there's a thing, and this is no shade on any old schoolers. I have so much respect from everybody from Bob and all the way through. I love those guys, but at the time, I wasn't really into the hippie aesthetic. I never really been into that. So that sort of stuff that like lent itself to a more just sort of like swirly abstract patterns and that sort of like a less precision approach to a craft wasn't really what I liked. I was really into graffiti. I was really into, like graphic art, and I still am in a lot of ways. Printmaking, comic books, things where it's like very graphic and there's like dynamic things going on.
Records.
Exactly, vinyl records, exactly. Even like musically, I'm not really into the jam stuff as much as I was, especially at the time, I was into like hardcore and hip hop. Yeah, I know. Roozie hates me for that one.
I'm just joking.
I feel like there's a lot that I've come to appreciate, especially about the early glass styles. Just because of being into it this long, I've even more recently, I've almost gotten back into that. Where I'm like, oh man, there's actually when you can pull those styles off, it's actually fucking amazing.
And what I would say is kind of cool about the more abstract styles is when combined with a very intentional shaping. You know what I mean? Where then it's like, I love that chaos when somebody that's really good at shaping incorporates it, because it's maybe it's sweet and sour. It's just like, it's contrasting themes that work well together.
Yeah. And so Sling tells you that.
So Sling explained, we're sitting at, I still remember Katie O'Brien's for this drum and bass night called Eclectic that I went to all the time then. He's explaining this to me and just clicked in my head. And at that moment, I was just like, I want to learn to blow glass. And I said that to him. And he was like, well, come up to Seattle and you're going to do stuff. And actually got a loan from Sarah Graham. Wow. Sarah Graham loaned me it was like $200, something that seemed like a lot of money at the time. For sure. But I was just broke and I didn't have the money. And I took a bus up to Seattle and hung out. I feel like that first time Aaron wasn't even there. Sling wasn't there. He was on tour with Fish, I think with Jason. So I got to work on his torch, which was a Victor welding torch, right next to Derek, and just try to make lumpy ass spoons. And
no one was there to shoulder.
Other people were at the shop. D-Rec, our friend Pat. Honestly, Kevin Nail might have even been there by that point. Max Poland might have been there at that point. It's kind of hard for me to remember the eras of time.
Yeah, there's some overlaps.
Totally.
So there's some people in and some people out.
Absolutely.
And so I don't know if MMP was there yet, but for me, I remember Max coming into I want to say it was after 2000.
Yeah, it might have been a little later because I visited a lot over those years. I just would come up to Seattle, hang out with everybody. There was even a point where people moved up to Bellingham, then I'd go visit Bellingham. There was kind of this back and forth where I was, especially once I started blowing glass and I had that freedom. to do that. But I still, obviously, that first trip I sucked. It was terrible. You know, I didn't know what I was fucking doing. Everything was trash. But shortly thereafter, our friend Pat Kiefer, who was the guy who taught Dwreck and Sling in the beginning, they quote unquote apprenticed with him.
Yep.
And he ended up moving to San Francisco, and we had a lot of shared interests with music stuff. He crashed at my house, actually for way too fucking long, but it was fun. I don't know how explicit we need to get, but we had some fun fucking times, you know, with like, you know, and you might, I don't know what we're including in this podcast, but let me just put it this way.
You can put whatever.
Say whatever you want,
And if later you regret it, we'll take it out.
I'll just say ecstasy was really pure in the 90s.
Great, yeah.
But I also like to remind everybody you're still being recorded.
Right. Yeah.
And we got it.
my blackmail. Anyway, it was a super fun time. We were going out and partying all the time. And then Pat had the experience, so he had the money and experience to get a shop together. So he rented this quote unquote live work spot in a warehouse. I helped him build out a glass shop. And actually he helped me a lot. I never apprenticed with him, and so he was always reticent to teach me anything or tell me anything. But he basically paid for everything. He paid for all the oxygen, propane, glass that I was using. And I was learning, we kept a running tally where it had a whole thing where he's like, this is how much you owe me per tube, per rod, you know, all this stuff. And I don't, you know, it probably only got up to like $1,500, but that was a fuckload of money to me at the time.
Oh, yeah.
And I paid him off every dime. And I remember him at one time later when I paid him off being like, I think you're the first person who ever like came through, you know, followed through on our like agreement, you know?
Because I will fully say this, but it was, we all were cool with it when it happened, but the original arrangement even that Slinger and I had with Pat was like 2 years, and after like a year we were like, you know, and like, you know, Pat was like, it's not that he wasn't doing his part, but we had just, it's almost like we'd gotten as good as Pat.
Well, he'd only been blowing glass for a year.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
he didn't really know anything.
Yeah.
And he got a lot more into the middleman, you know, like he created a bond company. He wasn't making them. He created, you know, he was selling our work in the beginning.
What company?
Molten Imagination.
Yep.
Shout out. That was the first first company I was part of.
Heard that.
Yeah,
not, you know.
For sure, but I never even like heard you guys even really
well, it was like his company.
It was Pat's company, But we were, you know, technically we were definitely under that. And just to watch, like, I mean, shoot, I early 20s. Nowadays, that's not so young for this game, but like from concept to actuality, just watching somebody with an idea, but also like a stoner, you know, like not book smart necessarily. I mean, he's smart, but you know, it was more of a more of a street approach than a but to, you know, I was along for the ride, and so just watching people with actual like plans, you know, he got us a cross country. Like you said, he paid for the shop and everything, but then he would buy the work off us and get like a 60% discount off wholesale price so that he was getting his money back.
I never did that with him. He never bought any of my work. He just like, I got going on my own, and because we were in San Francisco at the time, I could just take like a bag of the shittiest little fucking spoons you've ever seen in your life and hit Haight Street, and somebody buy them for $5, $3, you know, just some trashy fucking stuff. But great, I made $20. I can go like get a burrito, maybe buy weed, and like, you know, then hopefully get enough. I worked another job for a little bit, you know, in the crossover, but once I was making enough money to pay my rent, I quit that job. It was pretty quick. That's the thing. Back then, you could kind of suck, and somebody'd buy it. You know?
There was only like 30 glass blowers.
Yeah.
It's not. And it's not even. There was a lot more, but it wasn't that. It was that there was like the bar was low. So we none of us sucked, but the standards were very. You know, if it was structurally sound, so you couldn't bring cracked shit to the game.
Right.
That's about it. Because even devitrification wasn't fully understood. Lumpiness was like, you know, whatever.
The more the better.
Was, they could, I mean, you know, but then eventually, I mean, even nose burners, you know what I mean? You're like,
nose burners for
everything.
Sure.
But for a while there, we did have the luck or the advantage of being able to like learn how to blow glass where the bar was set kind of low as far as people's. And I said this before, I got to Seattle, and the first thing I kept thinking is like, I kept expecting to meet a good glass blower, and I didn't.
Yeah.
And now I only always say everything surpassed any of my imagination back then at this point, what the highest level guys are doing.
Oh, dude. And honestly, these days it's like just some kid you never heard of just got into it. And they're like
a year,
sick.
2 years later.
Yeah.
Especially, I hear it from like people doing classes, you know, more, and they're like, "Whoa, watch out for this kid. He just took my class. He's been on the torch less than a year, and he made like one of my, you know, when at the maybe the last day or so, they're like, you make something that artist." Signature kind of like makes, and then they're like, they fucking made one.
Yeah.
And now he's going to take a banjo class.
Right.
So you're like, oh shit, like
They're out there.
the progression.
Yeah.
I mean, you see it in music, you know,
For sure.
as a drummer, you know,
Now,
guitar, like you see
it's
8-year-old kids that are just like fucking crushing
Right.
the drums. I'm
The
like,
thing I
holy
think
shit.
one of the things that's so different about it with
Access.
flame working, is the access. And I think about it a lot compared to skateboarding, you know, because it's also such a recent phenomenon. That's like, you know, in the late 80s when I got into skateboarding at that era, you know, it's like nobody that skated like that would be sponsored today. You know what I mean? Like the basic, because nobody had even thought up the tricks.
Yeah.
The technology hadn't advanced to make the boards and the wheels and shit, you know? And like, it's the same thing with glass. You know, it's like when we were getting into it, obviously people were flame workers, but I mean, there were more than 30 pipe makers, but there were 30 fine art flame workers. You know what I mean? It was like nobody, and there was no internet. You couldn't just be like, flame working.
Yeah.
Oh, here's a bunch of YouTube videos, and Revere Glasses does step-by-step demos of every technique that you could even have, and I can watch Eugene demoing, and Eugene exists, and ding, ding,
Honestly,
Corning Museum, and you're like...
Someone asked me just yesterday, like, what's fume glass? And I just Googled it, and not and to be even
you
like
didn't
a
know,
dick.
you'd never heard of it before or seen it.
Yo, I'll one up you two.
Evan
Evan
was
and
like, and what's the best, quickest explanation? And it was just
Dude,
Googled right there.
I'll-
and I
check
copied
this
and I
out.
pasted.
Yeah.
Evan and
And
I
it
the
was a
other
great
day were talking, and I was
explanation of it,
I
better
was
than-
like, we should do just a history of boro or flame working.
Yes.
And he was like, I could just ask the AI,
yeah.
and he did it.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
brrr, it was like we were like 1,000-word essay
Right.
history of land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
gotta-
that'll
you
be
gotta-
the next episode.
You got to proof. Make sure you
It'll
proofread
be a
that
rope,
shit.
just
That,
a
there's like...
computer.
Oh no,
sitting
definitely
there.
got to proofread
Yeah,
it. But it's
yeah,
interesting that it's like it spits something out there. You know?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, it's a whole nother world. I remember one point my partner asked me, like, because I was talking something about how back in the day everyone used Carlisle torches, and I don't like Carlisles. I'm like, they suck in my opinion, but for me, you know, whatever anybody wants to use, but I don't like them. And she's like, and I was like, back in the day, that's all that everybody used. And she was like, why? I'm like, well, because there was no internet. How do you even find out another kind of torch even exists?
Yeah.
You know,
Like you
it's
said,
like,
what was the
if-
first torch that even Slinger had? It was a
Yeah,
What was a welding torch?
yeah,
Victor
and even
welding
boom,
torch.
a bunch of people from that did it. Started like 2003.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
pretty common.
They didn't even know. I think, and I can't wait to get Boom on here. But he said the first few pieces he wasn't even using the right glass. He was using welding glasses too.
Right.
So he was
right,
like all
yeah.
super dark. And
Same with
shit.
Jason
Until
Lee.
someone was like, "Yo, dude,
Jason Lee didn't wear glasses
he's
the
fucking
first few times.
titanium.
Oh, dude, we're not even
He
welding.
was like
glasses.
squinting. He said.
Oh gosh,
yeah, that's. Yeah, it was just a whole
Wild.
other thing, like being able to figure
Ezra
it
had
out.
the hoses backwards on the
propane
minor
oxygen.
burner.
Wow.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
That's sketchy. Yeah, you know, and now it's just like right there. There's all the tools, all the colors, all the things. You can take classes. I mean, it's just like even things like
The class.
you probably couldn't go to Salem Community College back in the day and be like, I want to make pipes. I'm into pipes.
right.
They would probably be like, you're in trouble and getting
can't.
kicked out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you weren't allowed to talk about the fact that you even wanted to make pipes. Now kids are just going to Salem Community College, getting like a fucking
degree,
associate's
yeah.
degree,
In
and then
pipe making,
they're
yeah.
just like, I make perfect,
Yeah.
lathe work. Ding, ding,
Yeah.
ding.
And
like
Corning
instant.
Glass is fielding
Finally.
questions. What kind of perk does the
I
Wow.
brought that up
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Dude, in the spring, I TA'd a class for ease at Corning.
Yes.
You know what I mean? I was there
That's
at the
right.
fucking thing, TAing a class,
The-
teaching
who-
pipes.
Yeah, we watched it was Hoobs and Rhino doing a demo at Corning live stream.
Yeah.
And they were fielding questions from online, and somebody's like, what kind of perk does it have? And he's like, what? 2-hole diffie. He's like, it has a 2-hole diffie.
Well,
What is the purpose
that
of
was-
this? To consume cannabis. you
Right,
know?
right.
And then he's like, this is something we're comfortable with now because the state of New York is legalized and
Right.
that's where they are and everything. So to divert a little bit, because to get back into the history, one thing that I feel like a lot of people don't know about you, Brian, is you actually threw the very, very, very
that's
first
right.
curated pipe show
That's right.
in
We have
that,
the
that I'm
flyer.
aware of.
I
He has
think,
a picture of the flyer.
yeah, man, I should have brought some of those.
We have one
He
here.
has
Yeah,
one,
nice.
And
Yeah.
we'll cut to it.
So
yeah.
I think the caveat is maybe it was the first pipe show at a gallery.
Yeah, yes.
Because-
Sorry,
yeah.
not at a head shop.
Yeah,
there was
not- yes.
there were definitely events happening at head shops. But the first
gallery,
Yeah.
curated pipe show.
Yeah, totally. And that
covered
was,
by High Times magazine.
Yep, there's even a documentary about it, or it's in that documentary. That's one of the worst fucking.
Operation Pipe Dreams.
Yeah, or Pipe Works.
Is that it?
Pipe Works.
Is that it? Yeah.
It's terrible, so corny. But yeah, there's a bunch of footage of it, and yeah, I was working at that point.
What was did you have a name for the show?
It was called Headpiece: The Art and Culture of Glass, or The Art of Glass Pipes. I think it was Art of Glass Pipes.
Nice.
Yeah. And yeah, I was at the Melting Point Gallery in San Francisco, and I got access to that because I was actually working in that building. This was after I left the second shop I had with Pat Kiefer, where he had his Molten Imagination Bong Company. I moved into a shop that was also like an artist warehouse. So there was welders and woodworkers and ceramicists and stuff like that. Painter was in there, and they had a little gallery on the front that you could use for free if you were one of the artists in the warehouse. So yeah, it was April 2003. I threw that, and super fun. You know, I just curated it myself with basically all my friends, but it was pretty sick. I keep thinking that it would be a cool thing to do. I thought I maybe could do like a 20-year anniversary one.
That would be
but
cool.
I think it'd have to be 25 years. We're getting,
once you pass
past 20.
you're like 30 it is.
Yeah, it's some highlights. Featured in the documentary, featured in High Times magazine. Dan Skye, who at the time was a reputable name in the cannabis journalism world, was there. Jason Lee had made a large bubbler that he sacrificed to the glass gods by smashing it against a wall intentionally. But it was cool. It was cool to watch it. It was all one day, right? But
but I think we actually did that like in the morning before the show even happened.
Yeah. He brought it there, and I make it sound. It was cool. It was a large piece that had gone through a little bit of the ringer in the process, and so he had a couple issues with it that made him not as happy with it. Probably had a scar here or there, and so decided, let's just smash this thing on camera. Yeah. And it was funny though. He didn't. He even at the last minute, he barely let it out of his hands. It's like.
Well, were you at the Champs
though.
when Ham made that huge
and drove through
rocking chair? And
I was
drove
not,
his truck
but
there.
I've seen
I got
the
to
footage.
witness that. Yeah, there's
Wow.
a video of it on YouTube. Ham, Hamm. He made a huge glass rocking chair. Huge. Ham Waterworks, fucking a genius glass blower. Jesus.
The
Innovator.
True inventor of the recycler.
He invented the recycler.
And cyclone technology.
There it is, people. But yeah, there's a video on YouTube, and then the Champs used to be so fucking like bumping. They used to have the Destruction Derby too, where you'd make a glass car and bring it, and it was last car standing was the winner. And it was fun. It was in like there was like plastic or not like glass, but like an arena.
Right,
Because
right.
the glass was flying everywhere. Damn. But it was just the camaraderie like behind people just cheering when cars would like crash
together. Would they put them down on different
and
ramps or something?
No, they were on like
RC cars. Yeah.
And it was like, so as the years went, people figured how to like make it more of a showy, like just putting on little loose, almost like barely bridged on parts. So when it would just be like glass flying everywhere.
Yeah.
And it was like so fun. So after that show, like Ham, did he make it there? He didn't make maybe he finished the rocking chair.
It was pretty big.
There.
I don't remember.
And then there was like, I'm sure it was his idea. He was like, let's drive my truck through it.
Yeah.
We fucking put it outside, and everyone from the trade shows just like outside, and this is before all the import stuff. So it was still like just like, a couple thousand people though. Like I felt like, definitely attending chant. We'd all just outside, and he just fucking drives through it. It was fucking wild. It's pretty fun.
That's
Actually,
amazing.
I'm going to go look at the video after this.
I was going to say there was a lot of fucking cool pieces at that show in 2003, and it was on the heels of Operation Pipe Dreams when a ton of people got busted.
Right.
Like, was that 2001? I want to say
one or two.
2003. It was 3.
Yeah.
So the show happened like right after that.
Damn.
So there was, I remember Ease made a piece that was like an American flag, like colors on the outside.
It was bipolar.
Yeah. American. It was like red, white, and
that.
blue on the outside, and fire colors on the inside. A functional hammer that he then sawed in half with a saw and had it opening up.
Yeah.
Jason Lee made the War on Art piece that had like a helicopter and barbed wire and all this stuff
Everything was-
around a bubbler.
Every piece was like a statement. Right?
Yeah, not every piece, but
almost.
Slinger made one that was also same thing, like American flag, like red, white, and blue, but it was like had 2 mouthpieces and no bowl, or it was something like a non.
No, it had no mouthpieces.
No mouthpiece.
I think it was all bowls and no mouthpieces.
Yeah. It was just something, and it was like double sided. It was just a really cool, weird conceptual piece.
Yeah.
And
What'd you make?
I made just some random headies. Sadly, a few of them got stolen later.
I specifically made a red, white, and blue Sherlock, but the white all had uranium over it, so it glowed in the black light.
Yeah, and was that like the first kind of show you guys were Gasp and Dwreck and Slinger and stuff then? Like,
I don't. Well, maybe. I mean, as far as like a show with an artist thing, I mean, we were like developing reputations through our distributors. He was Gasp from the beginning. I didn't really start marketing myself as Dwreck until I got on glasspipes.org, which was a little bit right around the same time as that show.
Yeah, shortly.
Because I'm Derek White for sure in that High Times article.
Okay, yeah.
Are you? But you were was Slinger.
He might have already been Marble Slinger.
I wonder, because he started developing that name on overgrow.com in the beginning.
Right.
A chat forum for cannabis enthusiasts.
That's right. I don't know if people even know that Slinger went by Marble Slinger.
Right.
That's
what the M stands for, if you ever see M
someone
Slinger.
tried to debate me saying his first
name was Matt or something.
Mike.
Oh, that's funny.
And I was like, what? And it was when I was still becoming friends with Slinger, like not as tight as we are now.
You're like, oh, maybe
and
that is his name, and I didn't know
I'm pretty sure it's Aaron. And then he's like, and I was like, oh, no, it's Aaron. Like, I know for a fact it's Aaron. And then he was like, dude, on Facebook, it's M Slinger. And I was like, that's because Facebook made you use real names eventually, and you couldn't just be like.
His last name's not Slinger.
Yeah.
I think he did have a short period where it was Michael J. Slinger or something.
You
like
did.
that.
You're right. He
Slinger,
did. So respect. You're right. He did do that.
That's
He
hilarious.
did.
Damn it. So
Forgot
funny.
about that.
Okay. He's like, the dude was like, his name's Mike.
Yeah, so
I was like,
whoever dude.
but I didn't know about that.
You're forgiven.
He had just said M, and I was like, no, that the M's for Marble Slinger, and that's when I had just come into the game. I remember, Marble Slinger, and I thought the dude only made marbles because and that's why when I got my first...
he had a period there where definitely he made a lot of marbles, and then he made a lot of pendants, and that one more time was that like immediately following Pipe Dreams, and so there is a lot of like don't want to bring the heat on yourself, don't know really what the situation is, and in the end that was it. They didn't really go after anybody else that I'm aware of with any serious zealotry.
How'd you come up with Gasp?
I had already come up with it as a tag.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Back
but even
in the
still,
day,
like what you just like.
Well, I was just trying to think. Well, actually, I know the exact thing. I was on the bus in San Francisco, and there's a graph artist in San Francisco at the time. I don't know where they were from, but they did Amaze. And it was up at the top of this building in huge block letters, Amaze, exclamation point. I remember looking at it being like, that is fucking amazing. Like, it's such a cool thing to be like, I'm fucking going to amaze you,
Yeah.
And I was like, Gasp, and it worked so perfectly with pipes.
Yeah.
That, like, as soon as I came up with that, I think people were just like, well, fuck yeah, you got to use that as your fucking glass name, And then... signature marbles were really popular at the time, so I could do a little graph style tag in it.
I was just going to bring that up because, crazy story, I bought a piece from Gasp at Champs, but I didn't even know that. And then I remember it had a marble implosion in there, and I could never read it. And then a homie was like, oh, it says Gasp. And I was like, oh, that's sick. Then I moved to Colorado in like 2008, and being a Southern California boy and also living in Hawaii, I wasn't used to the snow, and it was a little bubbler, so I had it in my car, and it snowed overnight, and it froze, and the next morning I got in my car, and I even like packed it and pulled it out to smoke it,
and just the bottom's gone.
And luckily I didn't cut myself. It was like super jagged.
Yeah.
But I was like, I came to hit it, frozen? And it wasn't bubbling, and I was like, what's it? And I looked, and the bottom half of the pipe was gone, and I looked down at my cup holder, and it just split. Yeah, the water froze in there, and the down stems would pop or just like cause the can to like split,
Yeah.
And so, but I never even like thought of that. Even when I sold his work, on the road, and then I got it, dude. It was like this crazy like memory I had. I was like, yo, wait. Did you? And I was like, I must have bought it from a rep of yours. And he's like, I don't have a rep. I was just.
Well,
oh,
no, it was.
wait,
I did. I had Joe and Deborah
Yeah.
who were doing monkey business at the time, then Jellyfish, and they would take my work all over the country.
Did
There
you
was a
do
huge-
Champs though
Champs.
yourself?
I never. Champs didn't exist back then. I went to the CTA trade show a couple times
I don't remember
with Pat
buying
to
it
go to
from-
his booth for Molten Imagination. It was the Contemporary Tobacco Accessories trade show, which was the precursor to Champs. I don't know if that's even the same people, but that was the one that existed back then.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah, I don't remember buying it from Deb.
Maybe then AGE jumped in, because I do remember then eventually I did another trade show that was just in a hotel in Vegas. It wasn't like the main one, but it happened at the same time. I think that was maybe
AGE for
the
sure,
AGE
but
one. Yeah.
I remember it being at like a Champs trade show. Like,
I mean, Joe and Deborah would have had it
maybe
there,
then.
yeah, for sure.
Crazy.
Yep.
Yeah, super cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's so dope. And then what ended up taking you to like Oregon and then
So 2003,
setting up base there?
Yeah, 2003, right after I did that show at the gallery, I already had planned to leave San Francisco. I'd had a problem with my landlord and just some weird typical landlord bullshit. I didn't have to move out of my place, but it's just the way that it all worked out. And I was ready for something different anyway. I just think even then, where I lived in San Francisco was very urban. You know, I had no yard, no grass. I looked out the window and it was the bus. You're looking eye to eye with the bus driver.
My car got broken into twice in the same weekend when I was staying with Brian
Yeah.
one time.
Amazing.
D-Rex on the
terrible.
couch, and there's just a car alarm going
Yeah.
off, and he's like, motherfuckers, and then he's like, wait a minute, that's my car.
And
Yeah.
then the next day, it happened again.
I think I remember, didn't your big CD book get taken?
Yep.
Like
so
back
that was
in
the
the day
day
when
of
the-
CDs.
That's all people would
had like
steal
200,
when they- you're
had
like,
like 200
dude.
CDs in the car. Lost those,
And
and
you're
then,
like, take the car,
Yeah.
leave the CD book.
Like, what are you gonna do with those? No jewel cases.
here's what's
you know?
worse. It was Seth G's book of
Gee.
CD. It wasn't even mine. It was like
Damn.
You dick.
somebody had loaned me like their 200 of their
Yeah.
CDs.
Yep.
It got stolen out of my car.
Fuck. But yeah.
and
it
then
was
the next night, I'm like, and now you just broke a window for nothing, you dick.
Yeah.
Nothing in here.
Yeah. So I was just ready for something less urban. I lived across the street from San Francisco General Hospital, and it was just like loud.
Oh, I know exactly. where it
Methadone
is.
Busy.
clinics, yeah, Pete junkies outside the window. You know, it wasn't even that bad. I mean, I've always been okay with cities. That's what the deal
Yeah,
with
but
cities. But
you
it
wanna
was just,
change.
it's like I just want something else. And I really liked Portland. I'd been up there before and had some friends who had moved up there. And I thought about moving to other places. So I did a whole road trip. So I took off in April and drove around the country for like 6 months. Spent time in Humboldt, actually with Chachi, and spent time in Seattle. That was when the GAS conference happened in Seattle at
Oh,
Glassworks
awesome.
Park.
Yep.
Also, that's a whole story
Oh,
in and
yeah.
of itself of an incredible time. Shared the bench with Ease, but it was with D-Rec was there, and Jason Lee, and Kevin Nail, and Dosher, and Eli, and Amber Pellegrini, and am I missing anybody?
That was probably it in the
Paco.
shop.
Oh, yeah, Pac.
Well, Paco would take Jason's
Eventually.
spot.
Okay, yeah. So yeah, it was an epic time. Hung out in Seattle, drove across the country, hung out in Ithaca again. TA'd a class for Tim and Eli at that point, for Ease and Eli, that taught a class at Buttermilk Studios, which was, for a while, it used to be the longest running pipe studio in the country, but it actually closed maybe a year or two ago. And that was Steve Gelb's shop. So yeah, spent some time in Ithaca again, and then through that whole trip, decided that I wanted to move to Portland. Moved there. Yeah, just wanted that, like a more chill lifestyle, more space, be able to get a dog and have a garden and shit
Still
like that.
have some of the culture that comes with an urban, with a city, but not
Exactly.
not San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was just kind of over. And it was like, it's funny to look back on it, because at the time it was like, San Francisco felt so expensive, but it was like cheap as fuck compared to now. Like,
Yeah, right.
everything was so much cheaper. I wish I'd had the wherewithal to buy a house in Portland in 2003. I'd be fucking chilling right now, but I had even less money then and did not have my shit together. But it was a great move. I love Portland, and I've been so happy there. It's been 21 years now that I've been there, and it's the fucking best. I love it still.
Aside from Glass, we mentioned that you were a musician. What are some of the other activities you have? Like, I know you were like in a band for 10 years, we were saying.
Yeah.
And so musically, what are some of the things you're into? What are you doing? And then what other artists maybe
Yeah.
are turning you on? What is it right now that makes you not just want to get a paycheck, but want to be an artist?
That's an interesting question. Yeah, I do love music. I love playing music. I play drums, but I also make electronic music. I play guitar a little bit now too, but mainly just for myself.
And of course, we have our soon-to-be experimental noise project.
Exactly.
The fecal transplants.
Yeah, fecal transplants. I also think we should do the experimental project based around the mythology of the snake cult in Conan, from Conan the Barbarian.
Oh, yeah, of course.
That's one I think we should do too.
Me too. Tulsa Doom.
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to say what art is really inspiring me now, because I am really inspired by art, and I love a lot of printmaking. I buy a lot of prints, and I love it as a technique. You know, like block printing, linoleum printing, stuff like that, silk screening, just all that sort of. That's just I think I've always liked the sort of bridge of art and craft. I think that's one of those things about pipes that really is a thing I like. You know, when it's like It's not that I don't like fine art. I like a lot of that too, but there's something about it that I like the work of it. You know, there's something about the tactile, like somebody made this with their hands and it was their vision. That, you know, then once it gets to the point where people have other people making the work, just becomes a little less interesting to me. A lot of those processes I really like of craft-based art. So yeah, I really love printmaking, and I was for a while buying way too much art, but I've kind of toned back. The crazy thing about that is it always costs more to frame them than it even costs.
Isn't that the truth?
Like I bought the thing for $50 and it's $200 to get it framed.
Yeah.
So that can't keep going on forever. But I do like other glass art, and I like a lot of mid-century furniture and mid-century design, actually. I have a lot of that furniture in my house, like Danish modern stuff, and I like glass from that era too. And, you know, it's a stylistic thing that's a hard sell in the pipe world. Like the pipe world is really tied to the psychedelic art world, that there's it's not a minimal form of art. It's sort of a maximal form of art. Like how many colors and how many patterns and how much shit can you get in there? Like cram it in.
Totally.
It's like busy, you know, and that's a thing that is a less appealing style to me than minimalistic artwork, like mid-century stuff. But that said, I do like a lot of psychedelic art, and this is a side note, but right now at the Portland Art Museum, they have a whole show of psychedelic rock posters.
Oh, cool.
Like from the 60s through the 70s. I honestly went the other day and I didn't even have enough time. I was like, I'll be there for a couple of hours, and I couldn't even get through all the rooms. It is fucking unbelievable and so cool. It's also so cool to see the progression of some of the earliest ones, where even, again, the technique of like the screen printing was really basic. They kind of didn't know what they were doing.
Totally.
And then they just slowly get like more and more advanced with multiple levels and multiple layers and really cool design stuff. Because that's a funny thing. All that stuff is coming right out of mid-century. So some of those same design elements are in it. They've just, and they're all on fucking acid, so they took it to that next level. I don't know if all the artists were, you know, but probably.
But back then, you know, before
It's
it
been
was
kinda
legal,
cool.
so
And I
clean and like, you know, and everyone's kind of, if you were in the San Francisco area, or you know, especially you're connected with those psychedelic bands.
And those posters were incredible. And they had a lot of them were from the Bay Area, and some of them maybe down from here in LA. Then they had an entire room that all the posters and handbills were from Portland. So it was really cool to see all these shows where, you know, the Dead was coming up and all these bands were coming up to play with local bands that I'd never heard of, probably people forgot, playing at venues that don't exist anymore. You know, it's just, it really made me kind of nostalgic for that time. So I'm not trying to, you know, bag on psychedelic art. I love that shit too.
Yeah, no.
and concert posters, I want to say they're making a comeback, but I also humbly have to confess I have never collected them, so maybe they've never gone away.
Yeah.
But I'm noticing a lot more going to. It could be that I just happen to enjoy large concerts more than I ever have. I also like small, intimate ones, but I do like being in a big crowd, all sharing a shared ecstatic experience. And I see whether it's King Gizzard or Fish or Tool concert posters. I like the way that Tool does unique ones for every city that they go to. I don't know if all the bands are doing that, but keeping that craft, even printmaking, alive, or at least an avenue for revenue.
Absolutely.
So then another quick question I'll have, and we don't need to go on, is when then did you decide to pursue fuming as a primary, I guess, patterning or coloring style? And
who taught you how to fume?
Pat Kiefer.
Cool.
Yeah.
Just right off the bat.
Right off,
because that was like a early.
Yeah, that
was
technique,
his tech for
right?
sure.
So
And that was the era, right? The 90s,
that's
it's
what I
like
mean.
gold and fume silver and,
no
and
color.
amber purple stringer, and that was like the raddest shit ever.
There just weren't very many colors.
So you didn't have meta?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a joke kind of with us old pipe makers, but it was literally like
8
there
colors.
were 10 colors or something, and it was mainly cobalt, dark cobalt, and fucking
Amber purple was the one that was rad, and
Blue
you didn't
Moon.
need to be scared of it because there was. Yeah,
Blue Moon was
there.
new. I remember when it came out.
And it just wasn't
Wow.
as cool, though, until I started sandblasting. I'm like, well, this makes no sense. It's blue, but then when you put it in the flame, it's gray.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't even look
Striking.
cool. Whereas you would do like a string or a wrap and rake with amber purple and gold and silver
And
fume,
all
and
of
all
it.
those
Yeah.
colors
Stripes,
would be
yeah.
really
Yeah.
interacting with one another.
Well, there's so many things like nobody understood flame chemistry back then. None of us did. So you get a color like Blue Moon, you need a really oxidizing flame. Even the
Yes.
torches, a lot of that we had at the time, couldn't really even probably get oxidizing enough.
Sue Ellen helped make a component, or she helped.
She
make
made
the
all
co-
those
She
colors.
made all the
She
colors.
was one of the
Amber purple.
original,
Yeah,
that's what I thought,
original color. Yeah.
It's hard to know. I know she was one of the originals. I don't know if it might have been people concurrently doing it. I'm not 100% sure.
Right.
I think she's sort of credited with discovering that you could mix silver and germanium, and that's like the basis of those amber purple colors.
She then, how did Abe?
Paul Troutman.
Troutman.
So Paul Trout, I don't actually know the history. Troutman started North Star Glass, and I
Yes,
believe
I remember that,
with
yeah.
her assistance. Abe bought
Bought
into the company.
That was
much,
later,
Much
Yeah,
later.
that's right. I meant
Yeah.
Tag.
Paul,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even in the early days, this is a weird little specific Portland thing because Paul Troutman is from Portland,
Mm-hmm.
and there's a street in Portland called Alberta Street, which is now a blown up, very gentrified street with all sorts it's the Alberta Arts
Yep,
District.
totally.
It's a whole fucking thing. But back in the day, it was really run down, and even way back in the day, it was a really run down, poor neighborhood. And there's a Rexall drugstore on the corner. I can't remember exactly where it is. It became a coffee shop now, but it used to be a drugstore, and then it was empty. And in that storefront, Paul Troutman and this guy Dave Goldstein, who became Rooster Glass.
Oh, dude. I was
Old
just going to say, I was
school,
like, wait, Rooster?
East Coast hippie dude. Very curmudgeonly, but I fucking really like the guy. We've always gotten along really well. He sells hilarious jokes, and he's just an awesome old school dude. But they worked together in that shop, and Dave Goldstein used to have a color company where we would hand mix the color, and it might have even been Rooster Glass. And I bought some at a weird bead show or something really early on in the late 90s. And so I think that's the thing. There were other people involved that were probably also learning and developing colors, but Paul Troutman was the one that took that knowledge because he was also doing it. They were doing it together. And he started North Star, and that became that company. He actually sold it to the accountant of North Star. His name was Charles, and then Charles sold it to Abe. Abe had already started Precision Glass up in Bellingham.
Yep.
And I'm pretty sure it was his landlord at the building became his silent partner because he saw that Abe was a really good businessman and could take it. But Abe was already a pipe maker that we knew.
Yep.
And so he was a pipe making homie that we
Yep.
all knew from
Yep.
back in the day.
For the record, Abe is the person that showed Ezra how to make an implosion marble, and then Ezra showed me how to make an implosion marble, and that's the technique I used to make all the face marbles.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to
And it was all within, basically we got to Seattle, and Abe, it's I'm meeting Abe, but he had just taken this class from Ezra, but ironically, it actually taught Ezra how to make a implosion marble
Hilarious.
in the class that he was taking from Ezra.
Wow.
Yeah.
His
Yeah.
technique different.
And Ezra just
thing.
was Ezra was a real confident and pretty decent glassblower for the amount of torch hours he had, and got it on the cover of Hive Times magazine and everything within the first few years.
Yeah,
of
he
his-
was kind of Ezra was really a genius type of guy. Where
Yeah.
he could almost do
Yeah.
anything, and he was just weirdly smarter and more motivated than a lot. Of people.
a tragic personality
Yeah.
without
Rest
a
in
doubt.
peace.
Both a genius, and then obviously he had some demons. He was his own worst enemy too.
Yeah. With the North Star thing again. So then Abe had North Star eventually, and then Troutman wasn't doing anything for a
Right.
while, right? And then he came back as
Tag.
Tag.
I think it
Troutman.
was
And I think he
Art
might have even
Glass.
worked with Momka. Am I right?
Yeah, I think Mumka was in the mix. She might have even also been in the mix with Glass Alchemy.
Uh-huh.
And what's his name from Glass Alchemy? Henry worked at North Star. So every single person is all from the same.
Yeah.
I don't know where the Moltenara guys.
You know
came
why
from.
Paul came back to make?
I've
color?
always thought it was because the
Money.
statute
Right,
of limitations ran out, or whatever
For
he had
sure.
to sign when you sell a company, being
Yes.
a non-compete.
Yeah, and that's what I thought.
And
So I was
the industry, the glass industry, was kind of going through that first
blow
big
up.
hype
Yeah.
phase with early, I
'Cause
want
he
to
came
say
back with slime.
Well,
recreational.
that's what I think he had recipes that he like
That
hadn't
hadn't
sold
been.
or whatever that he had
'Cause
tucked away.
that's when
and then he was
slime
like,
came out.
Yeah.
So
and
I'm sure there was
everything
a
slime.
combination of. I imagine it wasn't that he's like, I'm going to get rich, but just like, okay, this could at the very least sustain itself right
For
now.
sure.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You know,
I
and
was
then he
just
did.
wondering
And
if
I
he-
mean, honestly, I think right now the current American dream is build a business and then sell it for a lot
Yes.
of money and
And
not
he
have
did
to
it-
run it.
Yeah.
He did it twice.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
The
So,
same industry.
just trippy.
Who knows? Maybe he's going to come back again.
Actually, we're starting a color company.
Yeah.
No, we're not. But
Yeah, they're not the right time to do that right now.
unless it's Electrum.
Right. All Electrum. We've got 100 colors.
Well, I
They're
said
all
it.
Electrum.
I was.
We just buy it from Moltenara and mark it up.
Well, it's like it's the next slime.
Yeah,
You're going to
totally.
see a lot of stuff in Electrum
Oh,
for
yeah,
a minute.
yeah, totally.
For a minute,
For a
I
minute,
wonder if
yeah.
this, you know, this. Well, I guess it's always noob collectors, right? I feel like it's, the hype for slime seems to me to be a little bigger than the hype for Electrum is proving to be.
Yeah,
Even though
for
people
sure.
like
for
Electrum.
sure. Yeah, no, I know.
It was a gap, like those metallic
was a-
colors were a gap in the color spectrum
Yeah.
of what's possible. So
Yeah.
they filled, like Moltenara has, like filled it in.
I know.
Oh, here's a gap that we don't have. We're gonna
Hey, they
actually
make the
do
best
it.
purple.
Man, those I was just
Dude,
gonna
they make
say,
the
those
best colors,
purples.
hands
Yeah,
down.
Yeah, they make the best.
Very
Dude,
cool.
I'm not, I,
They
mean,
do.
I was about to say like how much I love North Star and I love Abe, and he's done, and like it's hard to overstate how much he has personally done
Yeah.
for this industry. So
DFO,
it's nothing like that, but like
all sorts
Oh,
of
yeah.
stuff.
yeah, but man,
DFO 's
Moltenara
awesome.
really came in with the colors where the quality is
For
just
sure.
and you pay for it. You know,
Yeah,
that's the
no,
thing.
it's
You pay
top
for
quality.
it, but it's like, god damn, they're good.
Yep.
Really quick, I don't know if it really matters. I was going to jump back to the fume question. 'Cause
Yeah.
that was a
Oh,
good question that we
that
got
was-
sidetracked
yes,
from. So I learned fume in the beginning, but in the beginning, the fume wasn't very subtle. Like Pat's technique was to fume as much as possible,
Right.
so they almost became opaque. And
yeah.
so I would make some fume stuff, but I was never that into it. I kind of wanted to make more stuff with color. It was like color was more exciting and headies and whatever. But I always made these less expensive pieces that were very similar to the ones I make now. But they were always, those ones had fume. So I used to do like laticinos and color stringers in them too, but now I just make them all with fume. But then I wanted to make headies that were all color with the hype colors and the cool stuff and whatever. I still kind of am that way, but when I got back into glass, I quit blowing glass in 2010, and I got back into it around 2015. And when I got back into it, it was a whole new world. Everything had kind of blown up. All these new colors, I didn't know what to do with them. People were really good. There's all these techniques and things I had kind of missed out on in that time. And so I just was like, let me take it back to basics. Make stuff that I know how to do that I didn't see in the market. I'm like, oh, I know how to fume. And there aren't that, there's always been people that did fume at the time, even like Royals was doing it, Maccabee was doing it. Kevin Nail, of course, had been keeping it real with fume the whole time.
Ease. Your
Ease,
boy,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Ease was doing it. JD Mapleson had his fumey tech. There were a few people, but it was like not that many. And I was like, oh, let me just start with that. So I don't have to figure out these expensive colors, or I'm just going to like maybe get back to basics. And I just kind of fell in love with it, especially trying to really get good colors, not just fuming as much as possible just because it's the fast way to do it and it's cheaper or whatever. Like really trying to get into it and realizing how hard it is, so hard to get really good fume and to get that full rainbow where you're getting the greens and the purples and all this stuff. You can go too little or too much so easily. And it's not just, and then you manipulate it too much and it either struck out too much or it burned out or whatever. And so I just wanted to, I kind of geeked out on it. I was like, how can I make this good? And how can I start making pieces that are more headies, but have the fume in it? Because that's, once you start stacking sections, you're more heat, it's in and out of the kiln. You start amplifying those challenges.
More manipulation.
Yeah, every time you manipulate it, you're kind of, so it kind of, I think, was exciting for me to learn/relearn something. And, also like I said, not as many people could do it good. It kind of tapped into an old school vibe that, I never thought of myself as old school, because by the time we got into it, I felt like we were new school,
Yeah.
We weren't Bob Shop, you know what I mean? That was a real old school.
Yeah.
But, obviously by 2015, I was old school.
Yeah.
So kind of tapping into that and using that, being like, okay, let me just embrace that and go forward with something that is a pretty cool thing. And also it's like unique to the medium. The color changer, like that's a unique thing that glass fuming does. That, you can do it with cups now. You pour wine or coffee and it has the same effect, but it's from pipes. That's why
And
that's a thing. And so I kind of wanted to embrace that.
Since someone did ask me, you want to just tell everyone what
Yeah.
fuming is even exactly.
Yeah.
So
it's basically the process of vaporizing gold and silver onto the surface of the glass. You take literally tiny chunks of silver and gold, put them in the flame, it vaporizes. I think in that process, it turns it into like silver oxide, or it changes the chemistry because you're heating it and you're affecting it with the atmosphere, the reductive or oxidizing atmosphere of your torch. And then it literally puts
and that's the amount of oxygen and propane in your flame.
Yeah, and that's a process that is a thing even in ceramics. When you fire things in a kiln in ceramics, you might reduce it or oxidize it to get different colors out of the glazes because metals are reactive at different levels of oxidization and reduction in different ways. So you're putting the fume onto the surface of the glass and then usually coating that with more glass. The style that I do most of the time is inside out, which is where I'm applying the fume and the color or the clear dots or lines or whatever pattern I'm doing on the inside of the glass so that when you look at it, you're seeing through the wall of the glass. And because of the nature of how boro melts, those dots or lines or different things you put on the inside melt in, they like go into the glass. And so it looks three-dimensional. I do a lot of dot patterns, so it looks like little bubbles so it's different than the surface where it'll also sink into the glass, but you're not looking at the concave version. You're looking at the concave thing, which is its own cool
magnified,
effect.
And that's what makes it kind of that.
Yeah, but it's looking into it, you're like seeing it come in like a bubble into the surface of the glass, or that three-dimensionality where it looks like the pattern is inside the wall of the glass, especially when you sink it down thick, which is like, especially on some of my smaller, less expensive pieces, I really like sink it old school. It's fucking thick, so you really are seeing these three-dimensional things. Or I'll do a twist of fume lines that I do different. I'll fume gold and silver on alternating walls, draw lines on it, and then when you twist it, you've got different colored lines twisting around themselves like a helix, and it's inside the wall of the glass. It's not on the surface, on the top surface or on the bottom surface. It's inside, and there's something so magical about that to me,
And so, as you mentioned, whether it's the coloring in, which is the smoke resonating the pipe, or if it's an opaque liquid in a glass, the actual color changing comes from the opaque background, revealing the subtle fumes and colors that were in
and
there.
really it's the difference between transmitted light and refracted light, because if you're looking at a fume pipe with a white background where light is bouncing off that background through the wall of the glass, you're seeing the light that's going through those molecules of gold and silver. Whereas if there's a black background on it, you're seeing the light that's bouncing off of them, and those colors are different.
Yeah.
It's actually technically like a dichroic glass. Like dichroic means two color.
Mm-hmm. Reflective and refractive.
Yes, exactly. And so dichroic substance is a metallic oxide sheen that they put on with a machine that then when it's manipulated has different colors that are reflected in it. But fume is like it looks very different, but it's the same concept. It has two things based on what's being reflected or refracted. Yes. Yeah. So I think there's something about that. It's magical. And, there have been people that have put fume in soft glass. Cameron Tower did that. Do this gold fume things, and it's really cool, but it doesn't have the same effect.
No, there's a Japanese artist. I have I'll show it to you. It's a marble. Damn it, I'm spacing on his name right now. And it's a soft glass, a very racist.
Yeah, you got to edit that out, or else Roosie's gonna get canceled.
And it looks different, but also me and Boom started talking. Like I was like, don't see fume in soft glass.
Yeah. Like I said, Cameron Tower did it, but and probably other people have done it, but just the glass it's a different, chemical makeup. The temperature is different. There's something really unique about the way boro interacts with fume, which is pretty fucking cool, and it's like,
obviously, or actually I shouldn't say obviously, as a fumer, the different types of borosilicate actually interact with the metals in different ways. So we have Simex, we have shot artistic, and for technical reasons, people generally seem to prefer Simex for fuming. But really, it becomes a little bit of a, what are you trying to do? Do you want more oil, like oil colors, or do you want pastels?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. It's a good way to put it.
But the pastels are not the prettiest. Chalky pastels.
Yeah. I feel like a few people have told me that they really were able to get incredible colors with shop more artistic. I think you have to practice. You have to learn what they're saying. You know, it's like learning a different material. But I use Cymax for everything because that's just like what I've been doing. That's how I know how to use it. And when I've used other types of glass, it just doesn't turn out the way that I'm looking for it to do.
So then, to wrap up a little bit here, any plans for the near future? Any thoughts on where the glass game is at, where you're at with it? And
well, I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to do some more shows. I did a show at Roosie's a year ago with my friend Ease, who we've done a bunch of things together, done 2 shows together now. We also taught a class together. We did one at Stoked last fall and or at the end of the summer. And I've really been enjoying that. I like doing shows. I like kind of the event. I'm doing Friday Night Pipes tomorrow.
Always a bang.
At Peace of Mind OC. And so my homie Slob, I feel like that, I kind of like that, the social part of it, having a thing where you build up a little bit of a body of work and then get to sort of reveal it.
I would say that is an important component of the pipe industry today, and that's a role that Roozie plays masterfully, is creating a community, creating a place where community can coexist and appreciate the glass together. But
yeah, you know, so I'd kind of like to do that. I mean, I'm not looking to do shows constantly, but a couple of them, being able to travel, see friends, you know, hang out with my homies, and be able to do an event is really nice.
Something about the show that, you know, kind of eventually puts like a fire even under other artists asked to, like, you know, to make certain collaborations happen. Sometimes there might have been like bubbling, you know, it's like, oh, you got a show, all right, I kind of give someone a deadline,
or even some prep work you've had for
that's
a
what
bit.
I mean. That's totally what I mean. So you're like, all right, like, you know, and then, but yeah, so definitely 2025 I want to do you and News again for
we gotta
sure.
talk about that.
I'm waiting for my calendar. Even if it's by early January when I book everything, but I think by December I should have. We can figure it out. Yeah,
it's great, and it's been really cool to do shows with Ease because we're old friends. We started at almost the exact same time in a lot of these same situations that we talked about earlier, and we're just good friends. And
Ease was in that studio in San Francisco. Ease was from Ithaca.
Try and get Slinger.
Ease actually also.
That would be sick.
You don't gotta bring any work, dude. Just come hang out and fucking.
But you might as well
draw Slinger on a piece of paper for me. I'll sell it, dude. I'll probably keep it actually, but no, that would be. I just love getting you guys, man. Total sleeper event. Weekend at Roosie's was the first thing I did when we opened my store in 2016. Like, there was, you know, some like shops like Goosefire that aren't around anymore, and it was just like there.
And I appreciate you, Roozie, for even sort of making things like that happen. It was, if I remember correctly, it was I think Rhino and Hoops one day, and myself, Sling, and
no Rhino. Yeah, so that was the thing. So like, it was a 3-day thing, and so like so Boom was renting space at Goosefire, and he was like, "Yo, Roos, they know you have a shop. They're busting out the Rolodex." Like, because Goosefire was bringing fucking artists. Like, shout out to what
Goosefire certainly
had
a moment in time where they were the heavy.
When I first even started dating Kelly, and I took her to a glass show, that was the Joe Peters show there, and
that was a banger
around the block.
That was probably actually a relatively significant moment in the entire pipe.
Man, it was,
because that was for at least myself. Not a quick sidetrack, but that was one where you're like, okay, and that was probably around the 2011 time-ish.
It was like 2012,
but that's
maybe
when
13.
all of a sudden you're seeing not just that a gallery is having a pipe show, but that they're having a 6-figure opening.
Yeah, crazy. But so then Chalice was happening, thanks to, you know, your help getting all those artists into town. So I banked off. I was like, yo, if all these artists are coming to town for Chalice, I had noticed the year before, a lot of them ended up just coming to Goosefire and hanging out after. And I'm talking like that like week or few days after Chalice, it was like the who's who was it. Boom said, he was like, Elbows here, and Tuba's here, and Nate's here, and Darby's here. And I mean, you fucking name it, they were there. And so I looked at the Chalice poster and I just like started circling every artist name whose cell phone number I had. And Slinger was on there, and Sling was even like not even really bringing glass. He was just bringing merch and playing people in chess.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was playing chess. It was dope.
And it was super dope. And so I was like, yo, Sling. And what were you? Did we just?
I was there.
You were also just at Chalice. Or did we just convince you to come
Chalice.
to town?
I went to Chalice
so you
a
were
couple
just
of
there
times.
too.
Yep.
And then obviously Derek, local. And then so I talked to Icky, who's a really good friend of mine, and Jolex, and they had just done some like work together, and it was like really dope. And then and the last day was Jop and Hoop. So the first day was Jolex and Icky. The second day was you, Derek, and Slinger. And the third day was Jop and Hoobs, but also then Hops and Time were like, yo, we want in on it. So we threw them on the last day as well. But that Saturday with the three of you, and those pictures come up on memories and stuff. And like, shout out to Jamie Zill for taking those pictures, for being there. And
cool.
she captures some really moments where I could just tell you guys are just telling stories.
I love one of those pictures where we're all laughing.
Yeah. And I fucking I get goosebumps talking about it. I'm an
I
idiot for not keeping the fucking Sherlock you guys made. Three-way
You
Sherlock.
I
am a fucking idiot.
I tell him that all the time.
I know.
He needs to hear it more.
So, but God damn it. But yeah, that was in 2016. I've wanted to do the three of you, and now that I've become closer with Ease, and I even like Kevin Nail, I've wanted Kevin to come out, another drummer, only drummers allowed.
Yeah.
Kevin's a tricky one these days. I will admit. I tried myself, and I was surprised. He's a little elusive. He's a sweetheart of a person.
Love Kevin. One of my favorite people.
Super talented drummer
I
too.
feel like he is in the family though, so it's
definitely.
So it's one of those where it seems like it should be easy, but money, all sorts of stuff.
We got to hang out with him when you came up to Portland that time.
Oh, that was amazing.
And we got to make a collab for the show that I had with Ease at Peace of Mind. And so we all worked at my shop.
That
Kevin
three-way.
came up. Yeah, we made a three-way collab.
Shout out IE 710. Cyrus,
yes,
scooping that piece. Long time supporter. He loves like your whole like crew and clique, and there's a whole group of people that collect like that. They love.
Got to get that bub.
The clique.
He's thought about it, man, and I think probably that was my bad for making that a bub and not a rig.
Oh.
It gets
I did make it.
Put it to it.
But you asked me, should it be a bub or a rig, and I think I was like, bro.
No, but then it was your fault.
But then also, without getting into the collector's name, another collector was like, bro, I was so close to pulling the trigger, but I haven't quite gone over to the dark side, and so the pentagram on the mouthpiece
and
is a commitment.
That just
for
reminds
some
Derek
people.
that he's fucking still keeping it real.
That's what I like to say. I like, if I ain't selling, then I'm keeping it real, man. No sellout over here.
Literally.
No selling out over here.
But
the Dwreck drop's the most real drop they can do.
What?
Yeah,
Oh,
so that's just it. Figure.
I told you.
Yeah,
I literally told Grady, I was like, usually they're about 30 minutes ish, but if you get these two going, it's going to be.
Well,
an hour.
and we've only cracked like 1% of the stories.
Exactly.
I know.
Well,
it's amazing.
You know,
luckily you'll be back.
For 30 years. You know, there's a lot
luckily
of
you'll be
stories.
back. So, pretty much.
Yeah,
thanks.
we'll definitely continue to tell the stories. There's so many different chapters.
Mm-hmm. It's great. I love
it's nice
you.
that for guys of our era, I feel like it's nice to see the glass game mature to such a great place, but also to a point where all the styles now are kind of appreciated.
Yes.
To equate it to tattoos, American traditional has its place as well as the new school shit.
For sure.
And
again, thanks to Slinger for making that movie and really bringing it all together and showing it very well. I'm going to shout it out as many times, but Degenerate Art, watch it. Gasps. And it also go watch Dan Collins' film. It's called Slinger, and Brian's part in that, which I didn't even get to.
You
was
should
like,
just
you
go
talked
check
about
out.
that
I
little
think it's
oneie
Fire
that you made.
Films.
Oh yeah, Fire Films Media.
Team
Fire Team Films. He's got a great documentary on Slinger. Of course, there's the original Degenerate Art. He's got a good documentary on Marcel's money.
Dude, he just did one on Paul Stanker.
Paul, thank you. I was just going to say
He's done the
Paul.
Michigan Glass Project.
Yep.
He really
Bunch
is
of
the
good movies.
auteur of our industry these days.
And he does music documentaries too. Dan's also. They were in a brother with Dan.
Yeah.
They were in a band with Dan's brother. Right?
I was in a
Dan.
band with Dan and his brother, And then
we were in a band.
we
with
were
his
in a
brother.
band with his brother, who's
Yeah.
a talented drummer.
Well, we were
So
all homies.
And
Dan
then
is
our
another
experimental
member.
band probably overlapped. That was
Right.
Chewbacca Ska, not a ska band.
And I'm so for. I love Dan too.
Shout
man.
out Chewbacca. We're
Yeah.
coming back to reunion.
We will come back because we don't even need to write songs.
Right. It was
So,
one of
this
the
time
best
you'll be
parts.
on drums.
Yeah.
No, I'm on drums.
Oh,
Two
double
drummers,
drummer.
two drummers,
All right,
man.
let's do it.
Tom's
That's
got to
like-
get
yeah.
in there too.
You
3
got
drummers.
Triple.
All right,
But, dude,
everybody.
thank
So
you.
just
I love you.
Dude, love
Thank
you, bro.
you so
Thanks for
much,
having me
seriously.
so much.
So
Love
to
both you
everybody
guys.
watching,
seriously.
just want to say, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, tune in for more content in the future, and we appreciate the hell out of you.
So it's the Instagram's the Temple of
At
Doom.
Tales from the
Tales
Temple
from
of
the
Doom.
Temple of Doom. Same as the YouTube page, Tales from the Temple of Doom,
Yes, at
And
Tales
then-
from the Temple of Doom.
and Gasp One
On
is his
Instagram.
Gasp.1.
Gasp
on Instagram.
dot one.
It's not an underscore.
No, it's
No,
a dot.
Shouldn't have done that.
Yes.
All right, peace
All right,
out, y'all.
Thank you, Evan.
Thank you so much, Evan.
Yeah.
Yep.